should accept the fact that this city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportions.
What do you mean, biblical?
What he means is Old Testament, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor. Real wrath of God type stuff.
Exactly.
Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling.
40 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes.
The dead rising from the grave. Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
We've even seen a referee 2 feet from the play on the sideline staring at the guy trying to catch the ball, staring at where his feet are, and still calls him out.
Get ready for 2 hours of hard-hitting football talk from two men in the know. It's Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.
Drew Brees is a Hall of Famer, absolutely, and showing that he could possibly be the GOAT.
All right, but I gotta say something about the New England Patriots here. The Patriots kept coming out and saying, before the Super Bowl even happened, they kept saying, oh, well, everybody's against us. Bullshit.
What they say, it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome once again to another episode of Football on the Know. I am Jim McPhee, and alongside of me is Mr. Joe DeCapita.
What's going on, everybody? What's going on? Welcome back to another edition of Football on the No Show. Ready to go. Let's talk some more football, Jim.
Yeah, absolutely. Some other stuff going on in the news. Ezekiel Elliott in trouble again. You know,
Shocker.
Things going on there with the Dallas Cowboys. The OTAs have been going on, so shaking stuff up in the news. Gerald McCoy's out there, Joe, and there's been murmurings of certain places that he's visiting. It looks like the AFC North is
Could
a
be a
popular
destination.
destination for him.
Yeah.
I thought maybe even the Colts would have been a nice spot for him in there to help out that defense even more. But then you've heard some other news, tonight about where he might be going.
Right, so you look at the AFC North seems to be the favorite type of, I guess, division you could say that McCoy is looking forward to possibly going to one of those teams. So he's already taken visits with the Cleveland Browns. He's taken visits with the Cincinnati Bengals. He's also taken a visit with Baltimore recently. And what's interesting is that it wasn't just a one-day visit. It was a 2-day visit. Usually when a free agent any free agent takes more than like 1 day type of visit, the team itself is very serious on adding him. Unfortunately, they couldn't pull off a deal right away, so he ended up leaving. I think he's still trying to see what else is out there. And just today, I heard a rumor that he's taking another visit, but not in the AFC North. It seems like he's traveling south, and he's going to be taking a visit with the Carolina Panthers. So that's something interesting, too, because we've heard from Gerald McCoy himself saying that he wants to play for a winner. He wants an opportunity to possibly win a Super Bowl before he retires. So it's a little interesting that he's even, contemplating maybe possibly even the Carolina Panthers, who, yeah, they could possibly make a run, but, you never know.
I want to give a shout out to Zachary Walker checking in with us. He's one of our first commenter
on,
of
Zach?
the night. It's a pleasure having him on here tonight.
One of our very much respected know-it-alls.
Yeah, absolutely. Gerald McCoy. It's an interesting concept. And how about
Right.
that with the Carolina Panthers, which their defense has been up and down at times. So it'd be great for him to have somebody of his caliber up there on the front end for him.
And and the funny thing is D-line hasn't been a weakness.
Right.
It's been a strength.
Yeah.
So, is that a good move for him? I don't think so. I mean, if he really wants to win, you got to be able to, almost look at the team's recent history. How close were they to making the playoffs? Did they make the playoffs? Were they close to pushing for that Super Bowl run? Do they have a chance possibly for this upcoming season to make a run to the Super Bowl? You immediately think about like maybe the New England Patriots, because they are continually always at least in the playoffs, always have a shot. And it's interesting that, so far the only visits he's taken is like Cincinnati Bengals. They're still they've added some nice pieces there, but they're still kind of building that team up. I don't think they're really ready to make a deep push into the playoffs. And if they make it to the playoffs, because that division is so damn competitive. And the Cleveland Browns, they've made a lot of splash moves the last couple of years. This year they added Odell Beckham in a trade to that team. They got another defensive end for themselves and Olivier Vernon and bringing him over. So, I mean, they've made moves here and there, and they look like a very explosive offense right now on paper. I mean, everything looks great on paper. It's a matter of building that chemistry with Baker Mayfield, having another year coming in. This is his second year, gaining that extra experience in the last season. I think that's only going to bode well for this team. That's a team that's intriguing to me. I really think that they could make one of those pushes. Now, not necessarily saying that they're going to go right to the Super Bowl after these moves, but they're an interesting team when you look at the roster as a whole. They're very talented in all aspects, offense, defense, any level. I wonder, could McCoy choose the Cleveland Browns at this point? Because, yeah, they're a young team, but they're up and coming. They have their quarterback now. They have plenty of receiving options. Great young stud of a running back in Nick Chubb. Duke Johnson Jr., despite all the rumors of him possibly being traded, he's still there. So, and that defense is pretty solid. They add some more pieces to that. Who knows where they could end up this upcoming season. Bengals, you take them out of it, I think. The Panthers, I think they need more help in the secondary, to be honest. I don't know why they would be bringing in a guy like Gerald McCoy right now. I don't think they're really ready to make a push for the Super Bowl. So we'll have to wait and see how this all shakes out. To me, if I'm McCoy, I think you go with a little bit of the young guns here. Maybe you drop in with the Cleveland Browns.
It could be, but you also heard Myles Garrett come out and say that he didn't really need OV to be over there and stuff like that. He can handle it himself. Doesn't need all his extra help.
There's no iron team there.
Yeah, I know,
Myles.
I know, but and then to have Jared McCoy come out, we've seen the teams gather all this talent before and think it's going to be this great super team and stuff like that, and not really work out so well. Mesh
Sometimes
out.
it don't work.
But we'll see. Who knows? I mean, it's an interesting topic there, and.
Real quick, I'd like to go back to Ezekiel Elliott.
Sure.
He's had his fair share of trouble. It always seems to follow him. He always seems to get in trouble now. You got trouble in Vegas. And the NFL, there's a rumor out there that the NFL is looking into this. They're investigating this situation that he kind of found himself in. The security guard, even though it said police on the back of his jacket, I don't know if he really was a security guard. Was he a policeman? Not really sure about that, but he's expecting an apology.
A sincere apology.
A sincere apology from none other than Ezekiel Elliott.
Yes.
I don't know if he's going to get that.
I'm sure he'll
But the other side of this whole story is that the NFL has already come out and said that they are doing their due diligence. They are going to look into this situation. They want to really kind of, peel back layers of what really happened down in Vegas. And if they find all of this to be true, they could be going hard after Ezekiel Elliott because in the recent past, he's kind of gotten away scot-free. No suspensions, no major, nothing huge. So I think because of all the reoccurring problems that he has around him that he keeps finding himself into, I think the NFL might crack down a little bit harder now.
Yeah, there we go. Right now we're streaming through Restream. You can find us here on YouTube. If everybody's watching here from YouTube, hello. And also Periscope. Everybody's watching from Periscope and Facebook. Our Facebook groups, Football on the No Show, NFL Talk All 32. Also, we're sharing here. And then my personal page, Zach chimes in again and says, is this Football on the No with Joe show? Yes, it is, because Joe brings a lot of knowledge here, and he is right on top of this Gerald McCoy issue, and we're trying to give you the latest and greatest, just
and
up
so
to date.
Doesn't Jim. Jim does
That's
a great
right,
job.
So we decided to come up with another list, and that's what we do. We always try and spend our Tuesday nights, in prep, up late trying to figure out the best quality show for you guys. So we like to come up with different lists and different programs here. So I'm going to kick it right into our next thing. We decided to come up with to generate some talk, and it is called the 2019 top 10 projected quarterbacks. Now, see, this is what's tricky about these things here. We say top 10 projected quarterbacks.
For the upcoming season, of course.
For the upcoming season. So we're not saying this guy is the best, this guy, is the worst, and then these guys. The people that are not on this list does not mean that they're terrible. We're just projecting on how possibly they could do this year, and we took different items to go by to judge this, how well their offensive line has been structured, if they got help there, if they got help in the running back position, things that help them gather success.
Basically,
and that's where we came up with all this.
Yeah, basically we took a little bit of the information from last season to try to gauge a little bit better of an idea of where we could see them up for the upcoming season, especially after all the new additions and subtractions from the roster.
So let's go right into number 10. Let's go from 10 to 1. We were just talking about this guy, and in our top 10 projected, we have Baker Mayfield at number 10. This guy is going to take a step up from last year. You notice all the weapons. We were just talking about it. Now he has Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. and another year of Njoku, and we'll see if Seth DeValve gets more involved like they wanted to in the offense. Nick Chubb burst on the scene. What a great running back there, and Duke Johnson still there as well too. So a lot of weapons here. A second year under Freddie Kitchens, so I think he'll only get better. We'll work out some of the kinks he had with some of the interceptions last year, but that's expected with his rookie year. But still, way to come out on here, and especially the way he came out last year. They were down in the game,
on fire. Baby.
It was done, and they just brought him back for a victory.
Yeah.
And now he's got the reins. And like you said, all the different weapons they're adding to this team. This team doesn't feel like a loser anymore. They feel like they're ready to go, and some are getting out of hand saying, Super Bowl bound, but I'd say they're much improved this year, and Baker Mayfield is going to much improved season.
Yeah, I don't know about the Super Bowl rate just yet because we still have to see this team play as a
they
whole
just
together
got a beer,
on the field.
Cracked open because they won.
They got so excited they got free Bud Light and everything, and after their first win. So great job for the Cleveland Browns last season. And you bring up Baker Mayfield there. Last season, you started to notice, like maybe early on, middle of the season, and all that type of thing, you could see him develop quickly. It wasn't like a rookie that stepped onto the field. It seemed like he's a veteran, been there, done that, has always been their starter for the last 3 years. And that's very encouraging, especially for the Cleveland Browns fan base, because as it got closer to the end of the season, you started to see him dial in. He started to really dial in on this offense, really he was able to build great chemistry with the receivers and running backs that were there on the roster. Nick Chubb came into his own fairly quickly as well, and really kind of took the ball and just hit the ground running. He just exploded onto the scene. Now, you look at this next offseason that they just pulled off. Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham get reunited from their old days in LSU, back once again. On paper, this offense looks very deadly. I mean, I don't know where you're going to, shift the defensive coverage. Now it's kind of split up. Now you're going to have to worry about every aspect of this offense, especially on defense. Their defense was no slouch last year. They managed to improve that team as well. In the draft, they got Greedy Williams to play cornerback, so hopefully he develops well for them. We noticed that he slipped a little bit because of his slender frame there. But, man, it's got to be exciting. Let's wait and see how this team kind of comes together, and I think Baker Mayfield is going to have a huge step forward. You got to also remember, too, they got rid of all the coaching staff, or not all the coaching staff, but they got rid of some of the, they got rid of Todd
Haley.
Todd Haley. They got rid of Todd Haley. They got rid of Hugh Jackson. They gave the crown to Freddie Kitchens now, and Freddie Kitchens developed a great chemistry, almost like a friendship, like a bond with Baker Mayfield. They kind of fed off each other, and they like to have a good time when they're out there playing, and Freddie Kitchens coaching. So that bond right there, I think, is just going to catapult this offense even better. Now that he's the head coach, he's able to make smart decisions going forward.
All right, there he is. That's Baker Mayfield as our 10th so far of our top 10 2019 projected quarterbacks. And next up, at number 9 is Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, surprisingly had a good season last year. I mean, he was knocked for having the big paycheck, getting signed, the guaranteed money. And when I looked at his stats as we were doing our show last year, this guy was throwing, I think it was like 72% accuracy. I mean, he still had 4,000 yards. And what he was doing despite, I think, the Minnesota Vikings having its ups and downs and not looking like the superpower that we thought they might be since Case Keenum, he was quietly doing things, So it's like we talked about it last night when we were going over this list.
Yeah.
Kind of makes it easy to have Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs there. So, I mean, that helps out for him. So I think another year with these guys together, and he's got another tight end there. So, I mean, I really like what's going on with these guys. And Kirk Cousins, he could crack the top 10. He did last year. So this year, I think he was like, I forget what he was last year. He was up there. He's like 4th or somewhere. I can't remember exactly. I think he was just barely a stick bound, but he's around here, same area. So I like him at number 9.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk Cousins, he did a great job last year. He took a lot of teams, a lot of people were bashing the heck out of Kirk Cousins, saying he's not that good, he's not worth $30 million. Yeah, you're right. I agree with the majority out there. I don't think any quarterback is worth $30 million of your cap space. However, Kirk Cousins did play at a high level. He helped, move that offense. He was involved. Yes, he had great weapons too, but quarterbacks need good weapons as well. So, and here's the thing about Kirk Cousins is he's not elite, but he's above average type of a quarterback, especially as a starter. He's adequate. He's accurate. And quite simply, he's for the most part, he will make the smart play, but every once in a while, he just kind of misjudges and makes a bad decision. But when you got guys like Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs and Kyle Rudolph is still there. We know there was a lot of rumors going on that Rudolph may be moved. He may be traded because now coming out of the draft, they did draft a tight end high in Irv Smith Jr., and he looks like he could possibly just take over that role, and then they can move on from Rudolph's salary. That could still happen. We still have all of the rest of the OTAs. We still have training camp to go. A trade could still be pulled off right before the season. We'll have to wait and see how that situation goes forward. But Kirk Cousins, he did a great job last year for the Minnesota Vikings. Made some mistakes here and there, but overall, when you have talent like that, you also have Dalvin Cook in the backfield that he's able to dump the ball off to as well as hand the ball. So we expect Kirk Cousins to take a step forward in this offense, and because his window of opportunity is shrinking too.
Yeah,
his
absolutely.
contract's going to be ending soon. So we think he jumps right into the lower tier of the top 10.
There you go. Zach comments again. He says, as a Giants fan, I'm actually excited to see how the Browns are this year. I think a lot of us are. I commented, yes, I think we all are. We're excited to see what happens.
Yeah.
So many people were standing behind the Browns to just get their first win. And maybe some of it was because of the beer. But, again, they're one of those teams that I think America can get behind,
right.
Because of the things that they've gone through so many times.
It's hard not to root
And now
for them.
Baker Mayfield, I think, just with the younger crowd especially, is very likable and stuff. So,
Right.
I mean, it adds a different type
if
of,
you're a football fan, you got to love the moves that John Dorsey's pulling off in the front office. I mean, he took this team 2 to 3 years ago and has now made them, on paper right now, he's made them a really difficult team for anybody to face.
I'm giving Zach the DJ horn on that one. So there he goes for 4 comments right here in the first 20 minutes of the show. You got to love that. All right, here we go. We're doing the 2019 top projected quarterbacks, the top 10, and we're going to move on to the next one. Here we go. And it's going to be, I got to move over here. Here we go. And number 8 is Russell Wilson. This guy, again, when last year.
Mr. Do-It-Yourself.
Yeah, that's the thing. Last year we thought, seeing they had the fire sale, they were getting rid of everybody, trying to dump money. I thought this guy was doomed for sure, what it was going to go on.
Right.
And lo and behold.
A lot of people did.
They also had like the top 5 like rushing attack, and Russell Wilson lights out numbers. His accuracy was crazy.
Yep.
I think you said when we were going over it last night, I think he only had like like 5 picks or something. It was
Yeah.
pretty ridiculous
Yep.
what he was doing, and literally by himself.
Yep.
I mean, Doug Baldwin was injured most of the year, so he always got his like Tyler Lockett. I mean, so a lot
Right.
of his targets have already just moved on to other places, and then you also had injuries. So for him to do what he could on his own, strictly just about, was amazing. And now he's got DK Metcalf there. A lot of people are getting excited about this whole tandem. So let's see what happens going forward. But I like Russell Wilson here. We'll put him in here at number 8.
Yeah, Russell Wilson, he is exactly that. He is Seattle. He's a Seattle Seahawks offense. This offense is not successful without him. He literally just does everything well. He's very mobile. When he needs to get out of trouble, he can and take off for 20 yards. He's very accurate. He has a decent arm. He's very smart. There's nothing that you can say about Russell Wilson and say like, he's just okay. No, he's a really, really good player, especially being a 3rd-round pick. To be able to develop very quickly and become one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, a guy that's been doing it all for the Seattle Seahawks ever since he's been in the league. But here's the thing that's interesting is, however, we do project him to do very well this upcoming season because he's basically a one-man show. DK Metcalf, I know a lot of people are very excited about his tangibles, about his attributes that he has. I mean, he's a gigantic wide receiver. He's like chiseled like Hercules. He can make a lot of the tough catches. He's very fast. There's one problem that DK Metcalf has, and it's not smarts because he is a smart guy. It's route running. Point blank, route running is his kryptonite. He's never been really good at it. He hasn't even been instructed in college to work on. He had 3 routes in Ole Miss: a go route, a post route, and a drag. That was it. He didn't work on his craft on every single route that you possibly may need to have when you go into the NFL. And because of that, he took a little hit in the draft. He slid way down. Seattle pulled the trigger when they were there, and they took DK Metcalf. Now he's going to have to be developed as a route runner. And if he can develop as a route runner, I think he could potentially be like a Julio Jones type of receiver. He's got the same kind of makeup as a Julio Jones. He's got speed like Julio does. He's got size. He's got hands. The only thing is route running. So if he can develop that, watch out, NFL. Going beyond that, though, you bring up Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett was almost like a savior for the deep bomb from Russell Wilson, would always kind of find a way to get open deep. So he's going to keep on going. David Moore. Mm-hmm. David Moore is kind of like, he's a little in the shadows. For the casual NFL fan, not a whole lot of people know about David Moore. He started to ascend this past year and really help out with the injury that happened to Doug Baldwin. He was in and out of the lineup quite often, mostly out of it, and it gave an opportunity for David Moore to shine. So going into this season, look for David Moore to become more of a threat in this offense as well. And their offensive line played brilliantly last year, just by firing their offensive line coach and Tom Cable. They made some upgrades this year, but at the same time, they played at a much higher level just by getting rid of their line coach. So what does that tell you about Tom Cable? This is the second time he's been fired, and the line gets better. So going with that, plus they have a plethora of running backs to run behind them who've all kind of made a small name for themselves. We think that's going to continue. Russell Wilson is there at 8.
There you go. And we are doing the 2019 top 10 projected quarterbacks. And next we're going to move on to who we have next. Next at number 7 is Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers. Again, last year,
lit it up.
Was able to have all of the receivers there healthy for once, and unfortunately, he didn't have Henry, so
no
Henry, so he ended up having to get Antonio Gates back. But I mean, this guy was lighting it up all over with all of his wide receivers, just connecting. And they were like kind of a surprise team, I think, in a sense, for that division to move up there and test the Chiefs a little bit and make it as far as they did, just to only get blown out by the New England Patriots in an AFC Championship game. But Phillip Rivers always putting up good numbers. This guy is secretly one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and he always gets overlooked.
Right.
I mean, he's just quietly in there, and he doesn't bother
right,
anybody.
right.
He's not
Yeah,
flashy,
yeah.
and he's always putting up great numbers, great accuracy, and
A lot of
you can't
people like
say
to point
anything
to
else.
the interceptions that he's thrown in his past. But here's what I would say to that. How good of a quarterback do you think anybody else would be in that same offense with the same personnel, with a guy that had literally like hardly any weapons that had no weapons were big named? You know, the biggest name that they had was Keenan Allen, but guess what? During those years, Keenan Allen was hurt, wasn't even playing. He had guys like Dontrell Inman. You know, when he got his start, he had Tyrell Williams, who at the time nobody really knew who he was, and he had guys that were like no names, and he was still carrying that team. He was still making that team productive, able to put points up, and I think did a fantastic job with not having any talent around him. So, he had Melvin Gordon for a small stint in that pass, but still, Melvin Gordon wasn't that great in his rookie year. He was terrible. He would fumble a lot. He had a lot of fumbling issues. He even running the ball, his vision was poor, and he had to develop. That's the football on the no show mascot. If anybody is wondering, that's Shadow. But you look at this team now, and it's much improved. The offensive line was absolutely horrendous back then too. So I know a lot of people want to say, "Oh, we threw tons of picks." Well, there was a reason. It wasn't protected. So now you look at this team now, a much improved offensive line, very much is protecting Phillip Rivers. You look at this wide receiver. They drafted Mike Williams, who's starting to develop into his own. Keenan Allen, healthy for once last year, and he was able to display what he can do for this team. Now you look at Hunter Henry. You bring up Hunter Henry. This is a guy that they have very high expectations on at tight end. A guy that can really play well and is a definite mismatch for opposing linebackers. We expect Phillip Rivers to take another jump. He with the chemistry that he's built with the receivers that he has a lot more weapons, and he's getting Hunter Henry back. Hunter Henry, a more athletic, a faster tight end. Antonio Gates, they were desperate, so they called him back, and he really didn't do much. But now what you have with Hunter Henry is a guy that can make a big splash with Phillip Rivers as well. So Melvin Gordon, Austin Eckler, also at running back. That duo right there in the backfield is really tough to keep a lid on them. So we expect Phillip Rivers to take another step forward and end up there at 7.
That's right. We are talking about 2019 top 10 projected quarterbacks. We are doing our list here right now. We are at number 6, and this is how it pans out right here. Number 10, Baker Mayfield. Kirk Cousins, number 9. 8 is Russell Wilson. 7, Phillip Rivers. And number 6 is Aaron Rodgers.
Wait, don't panic, everybody. There's a reason.
Yep. And Aaron Rodgers, this guy, again, despite trying to do things on his own, much like Russell Wilson does a lot of times, and being injured. Last year, he took a really rough hit to the leg area. And the
banged
knee,
up all year.
And kept playing. This guy just sucks it up and keeps going. You can't doubt his toughness. And his numbers are still lights out despite not having the weapons that some of these other quarterbacks are able to have. And so Aaron Rodgers, I say here, is number 6. He's going to be putting up decent numbers, and I like him right here before the top 5.
Yeah, and here's the thing with Aaron Rodgers. We're going to get a lot of hate by Green Bay Packer fans and maybe even from some NFL fans. But there's a bunch of variables that go into this. One, Aaron Rodgers the past couple of years has been injured quite often. So he's been out of the lineup here and there. Another thing is his offensive line has been beat up. His offensive line is starting to age. We already seen how one of the guards has retired now. They've had to bring in somebody else to possibly take that over. And hopefully they do an adequate job. So injuries to the offensive line as well. So when they get injured, now Aaron Rodgers is less protected, and he ends up getting injured because of it. Tight ends. He has two great tight ends. One of them happens to be a rookie who I am very high on, Jace Sternberger from Texas A&M. This kid, it reminds me a lot of a tight end that you may all know in Travis Kelce. That's how high I am on Jace Sternberger. He's a guy that's very athletic, has speed, can catch. He's going to be able to stretch the field for Aaron Rodgers when given the opportunity. And they have Jimmy Graham still there. I was absolutely really shocked the fact that last year they didn't really utilize him that much, hardly at all. I thought it was a great marriage between Aaron Rodgers and Jimmy Graham. I thought that he was going to be able to have a breakout season again, much like he did back in New Orleans when he was very successful there, but it wasn't the case. So we'll have to wait and see and monitor that situation. Also, the receivers. Now, when I tell you Equanimeous St. Brown, I tell you Allen Lazard, I tell you Trevor Davis, and then when you get to the bigger names, obviously everyone knows Devontae Adams, a great elite receiver. But there's a couple of guys who you got to look at too. Is watch out for Geronimo Allison. He played very well last year when given the opportunity. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, another guy who played well when he was given the opportunity. But these are a lot of potential guys that could develop into something special for Aaron Rodgers. And that's really the reason why we have Aaron Rodgers a little bit lower on this list.
Right, and the one question, though, is the new head coach that they have. I mean, he wasn't exactly lighting things on fire with his offense for the Tennessee Titans either.
He wasn't?
So, I mean, they were one of the worst offenses,
You mean
I think.
the same coach, Matt LaFleur, who was the offensive coordinator in the Titans, who didn't figure out that Derrick Henry is a good running back until the end of the season?
Yeah, at times, yes, and couldn't develop Marcus Mariota. So let's see what happens there, and that's what I mean. What's the relationship going to be between him and Aaron Rodgers, and what is his offense going to look like? We know it looked a little stagnant with Mike McCarthy there,
right?
Not being able to adjust and make differences there. So
yeah, the problem
that could be why he takes a step back here.
Absolutely, the problem with McCarthy is that he failed to utilize the running game more. I think if McCarthy would have still been there, had he ran a more balanced offense, it would have really helped out Aaron Rodgers as well, because they had Aaron Jones, they had Jamal Williams, two running backs that, when shown, they flashed a little bit. So why not give them the rock a little bit more, take a little bit more pressure off of Rodgers and that offensive line, and develop that offense further. I really believe that. Now you have Matt LaFleur, very unexpected. Very unexpected. We really, like you said, we really don't know what this offense is going to look like. Is it going to be similar to the offense that Aaron Rodgers ran with McCarthy? Is it going to be drastically different? Are they going to be able to make this offense more balanced to really help out everybody all around? And also, he's got to develop these receivers at the same time.
That's one thing I'm interested in seeing. All right, right now we're doing the 2019 top 10 projected quarterbacks. And we are moving on down to number 5, and it's Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan, still, despite how his team produces for the in the standings, still does well despite having issues up and down. Last year, he had times where he was just making bad throws too. It's like he trying to force it to Julio Jones too much. I don't know if it was like a thing between him and Julio, because Julio did have that holdout last year,
right? And
it seemed like he had trying to reverted himself a little bit back to his old ways before he hit the Mike Shanahan or the Kyle Shanahan kind of offense that he had, where he's spreading the ball around to his running backs, different wide receivers, and look at all the talent he has to throw to. I mean, you cannot spread it around to enough. I mean, why are you just forcing it to Julio Jones?
Exactly.
And so Julio had a big year last year with him. I'm hoping that this year, again, Matt Ryan settles in and can spread the ball around and get it out to everybody evenly. And Calvin Ridley jumped on the scene last year, and I expect a better year out of him here moving forward. And I like Matt Ryan here to crack the top 5 overall for next year.
Yeah, and it's hard to debate Matt Ryan. I know there's a lot of Matt Ryan haters out there, a lot of people that give a little backlash on whenever you mention Matt Ryan being in a top 10 list, no matter what it is. But it's hard to to negate the fact that he has one of the best receiving cores in the league. You have Julio Jones, you have Mohamed Sanu, and Calvin Ridley as a rookie last year really took off. I mean, it's not common to, after you've been drafted, to really kind of be, I mean, yeah, you're involved in the offense, especially if you're a high draft pick, but it's not common to see them really like just take off in a rookie year and just take the ball and they're that dramatic of an improvement. But Calvin Ridley was one of those rare type of specimens that did. And you started to watch that season. Julio Jones, as many targets as he's gotten, Calvin Ridley kind of almost outshined Mohamed Sanu, who is by no means a below average type of receiver. We're very high in Mohamed Sanu. He's one of the best and has one of the best hands in the league. So that's tough to beat when you got almost in the sense you got three number ones, on your offense at the same time on the field. So that's tough enough. And then you also sprinkle in Austin Hooper at tight end, who he got a little bit more involved as the season went on. And I expect much of that same production from all of them this coming season, even though I think I really completely agree with you on this, Jim, is that Matt Ryan really does need to spread the ball around a lot more. If he does that, like when Kyle Shanahan was there, I think it's going to make it extremely hard for anybody to stop this offense. And you also look at their offensive line. Now, we know they spent, they invested a lot in terms of draft picks on that offensive line. They bring in Chris Lindstrom, who was seen as the best guard coming out of the draft, and as far as a top 5 tackle coming out of the draft, they add Caleb McGarry to really strengthen up that right side of the line. And they also brought in a guy that Jet fans would be familiar with, in James Carpenter, a guy who's a veteran who they just bring in to plug in that left guard spot. So overall, I think if these rookies develop and are seen as coming out of the draft as going to be one of those guys that you can plug and play, which I believe in both of these guys, I think this offensive line has gotten stronger and younger, stronger, and better. So you take that, and you also, you cannot not mention Devontae Freeman in the backfield, a guy that's an absolute beast for Atlanta. He, in receiving and in rushing yards, I think this offense is going to be tough to beat, just like you do, and that's why Matt Ryan is right up there in the top 5.
There you go. And now in our top 10 list of 2019 projected quarterbacks, we are now moving on to
what do we got?
Number 4, and that is Jared Goff.
Real quick, just want to give a shout out to Bob Money. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Bob Money, yo, what's up, Bob? Let's give a shout out to Bob. Here we go. There we go. Yeah, checking us out from YouTube. All right, excellent. He's a YouTuber here. What's up, guys? What do you think of the Niners? I have a lot of questions about the Niners, but I'm excited. I want to see what happens here. I want to see a full season of Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
I want to see what running backs they stick with and what they're going to do with all that. And
there's no shortage of talent in that backfield. That's all I got to say.
Oh, I know.
There's recent rumors that are coming out of San Fran saying that Tevin Coleman, the newly signed running back there, he's going to actually be the starter, it looks like. He's going to just start over guys like Jerick McKinnon, who happened to get injured last year. McKinnon's coming back healthy, and he looks just as deadly as last season. It's interesting because they have Jerick McKinnon. They signed Tevin Coleman. They had Matt Breida, who really kind of popped on the scene last year, given that opportunity, that starting opportunity. And then when Matt Breida got banged up, Ryan, I like to call him Mostert. Is Mostert.
Yeah.
But he's another starting caliber back that not a lot of people know about. So they have 4 running backs that could start for any one team in need, and they got them all in one spot. I'm curious. I wonder, do they keep 4? With this regular season, it's uncommon to see that, but they got a lot of talent in that backfield. And as far as who starts, that's going to be a battle, one hell of a battle. Now, as the 49ers as a whole, they're developing. The Dante Pettis played very, very well for them last year. Yep. We look at Marquise Goodwin, who's an extreme speedster of a wide receiver on the other side
and
there.
George Kittle, for some reason, they just could not. No teams could figure out a way to shut this guy down
because he's got athletic and speed. He's athletic and speed, and he's got hands.
That dude was lighting the world on fire.
It's just like Travis Kelce. You show me how many guys can stay with Travis Kelce and defend him well. There's not many. And George Kittle is in that same conversation. I think George Kittle to me is a little bit better than Kelce. I think he flashes a little bit more. He's a little bit more harder of a guy to stay with. And when you just have George Kittle, now here's the thing with Jimmy Garoppolo. We love the Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo, here's the key for the Niners offense, is he just got to stay healthy. Yeah. It's that simple. We've already seen him be extremely successful with this team when he's on the field. Jimmy, if you're listening out there, all I have to say is don't take hits. That's it. Just don't take hits. If you're running down the sideline, just get out of bounds, please. Do not take a brutal hit like he did, and it cost him the season. So I think going forward, and then you look at the defense. They pulled off a trade for Dee Ford from the Chiefs. I think that's a great trade for them. They didn't pay him they paid him a decent amount of money, but nowhere near what the Chiefs spent on Frank Clark.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think they're slowly building a bully in San Fran. They're doing it the right way. They're not trying to get too desperate and just get it all right in one offseason. They're slowly building it, and they're getting better. They're going to be a very competitive team this year. It's all going to hinge on health.
Hey, Mike Tackett joins us here. Boom. Happy hump day, fellas.
Mike
just
Tackett,
tuned
baby.
in, so I went back home to Columbus for the weekend. As I drove through Cincy, past Paul Brown Stadium, there was a physical cloud of depression just floating around the stadium.
All right.
Even Cincy fans are pulling for the Browns this year. Wow. Feels like the Bengals of the 90s are back. Man,
boy.
as for the top 10 quarterbacks, I'll give you my 2 cents shortly. Keep up the great work, fellas. Thank you so much, Mike.
Appreciate it, Mike.
Always love it when you come in and chime in.
Yeah, Mike, one of
Bob
our
Money for checking us out too as well.
Right, Mike, one of our loyal know-it-alls in the group and everything. He's a great guy. He's always full of information. Always gives the best questions. It seems
Yes,
like
it
he's
does.
right on top of it. And kudos to you, Mike. Safe travels, buddy.
And what's funny is that the cloud is over top of Cincinnati right now.
Yeah.
Why? Like Marvin Lewis is gone now. Everybody should be celebrating, right. You know what I mean? Somebody should be
now
cracking
it's
open
Zach
the
Taylor's
beer, right?
team.
Maybe,
Yeah, I know. Maybe that's what it is. It's very uncertain
They're
in
cracking open the beer,
Cincinnati.
drinking. They're excited right now. Maybe they're going to start drinking the beers
I
when
don't
they get
know.
a win. I don't know.
I don't know. I think the Cincinnati fans need to see
Yeah.
some production and some results before they start
Yeah.
popping bottles.
Yeah, because you know what, though, too? We were thinking that maybe in the draft, who knows, maybe Cincinnati would have looked at a quarterback,
Yeah.
which,
They could have.
They could have, and see what happens there, what they're going to do. You move on from Andy Dalton, because always what you hear, too, is with him is that he can't win the big game, and
Right.
issues here and there. So, with a new regime in there, they're going to look at him and evaluate him and say, he's here, this is what we have. Time to move on and get our own guy in
And
there.
mind you,
we'll see.
now it's Zach Taylor's team. Now he's the new sheriff in town, the new head coach, coming from the Rams as their offensive coordinator. And one season with the Rams ends up landing a head coaching job. I'm also very curious how much of the teachings passed down from Sean McVay did he take to Cincinnati? Is that offense that, because he's an offensive coordinator, is that offense that the Rams run with a lot of jet sweeps and just short, get them out of your hand once in a while, take a shot deep? I wonder if that offense is going to be very similar to what the Rams run now in Cincinnati. I think it works well. Especially for Andy Dalton. And maybe that's why. Maybe they felt comfortable with this new offense that they're going to be undertaking. Maybe they felt that Andy Luck is going to fit perfectly with this offense and able to kind of like
Andy Dalton?
Andy Dalton, sorry.
Yeah,
but maybe he's going to take off and maybe be a little more productive now with this new offense. So we have to wait and see. A.J. Green has also been a name out there floating around in trade rumors. If they happen to trade A.J. Green, or if a team comes calling saying giving up a good enough compensation for him, that offense is going to be hurting big time. We've already seen them how they rebuilt this offensive line, and they've played much better now. And you look at the running back that they have, the receivers. Tyler Boyd was really the go-to guy last year. He was always healthy, always out there, always playing. And now you look at the Bengals with Zach Taylor, a little bit of uncertainty because we don't know what to expect on offense.
Yeah, so who knows what's going on with them? But yeah, it's funny. Mike Tackett, he says he goes back home to Columbus, but Columbus, Ohio. But he's also a Packers fan.
That's right. It's
Somehow,
close, yeah.
but then he lives in Ocala, Florida, too. So I mean, it's funny how you like who you like, what team you are. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter
it is what it
exactly
is.
where your locale, where you're from, and things like that. It's really interesting the different types of fans we find here. So let's get back to the list here. We are at number 4 with Jared Goff. Last year, took his team to the Super Bowl on a pretty crazy call and pass interference with the New Orleans Saints. I'm sure that Sean
Are we bringing it up
Payton is
again?
still upset about that, and just like they
Rightfully
kind of,
so, though.
I
mean, that was a absolutely. I mean, I don't have words. That's how bad of a call it was. It was just absolutely terrible, and this is what really bothers me is when referees. And everybody saw it. I mean, if you haven't seen that by now or have made your own assumptions, I don't know, you need to check it out. But it was by far one of the worst calls and shape-shifting calls of the playoffs in history. When you are, as a referee, and you take away from what could have been a great season from a really good team because of a terrible call, it just really irks me. I don't understand it. It's really frustrating because now there's no repercussions for that referee or referees. Why? Why don't they get, suspended the next season? Why isn't there some kind of, and there was a lot of, a lot of outpour and rage over this whole situation. So much so the NFL had to address it publicly and say, we apologize. We failed as a league, and we were going to look into this matter and make sure this doesn't happen again. Okay, that's great, but what about that situation?
Yeah, that doesn't help
was a lot
at all because we just lost and we didn't move on.
And there was a lot of people out there that were saying, "Hey, why don't you just replay it, make the right call, bring everybody back and replay it." That's a little absurd. I think it's a little too crazy, but it's almost like you want to do that to justify what would have happened. In that situation, it would have been game over. The Saints would have ended up winning that. So
Zach chimes in again and says, yeah, maybe if the Saints won, they might have beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Yeah, I think they had a better chance. They were one of those teams that had a better chance.
It's possible.
I think, to possibly beat the Patriots. But who knows? The games are played, and then the referees ref the way they do. And now it leads to another rule change. So now we do have, pass interference is reviewable under coach's challenge and things like that.
Yeah.
Now under the 2-minute rule, they can do it too. They can coach
now it's set up to where it's the whole game. It's not when the 2-minute warning hits before the half or at the end of the game. Now the coaches are still able to challenge that pass interference call or what should be or may not be pass interference.
So Jared Goff, here we go. Last year again, he Sean McVay. That's why he looks like the guru out of this whole thing, and why everybody wants to try and get another coach like Sean McVay is because he took Jared Goff to where there was questions when he was with Jeff Fisher if he was really the guy.
Right.
Then he shows him here with McVay, and he steps out on the scene. Plus, it's nice to have all those weapons that he has too. So he's got another season with those guys, and the way this offense is set up, it's built under the pass, and also having Todd Gurley there as well to be your rusher, but then also get involved in the passing game as well. It's great to have here for Jared Goff. He had some great accuracy last year, very minimal mistakes, and I think this year you can only expect more, and that's why I put him at number 4 over Matt Ryan.
Yeah, and this is the reason why we put him at 4 is he has a plethora of attacking receivers, and not just at the wide receiver position, but also you look at tight end.
Cooper Kupp back this year, too.
Right. You also have the guy at tight end and Gerald Everett, who kind of stormed on the scene late last season into the playoffs, was more involved in this offense, and that's encouraging because when you got tight ends like Gerald Everett, who started to develop and play much better, they also have a guy by Tyler Higbee, who's another really good tight end. So now they have 2 of them. You look at Cooper Kupp, who was injured all last year, coming back healthy again, on top of guys like Robert Woods, Josh Reynolds, Brandon Cooks to take the top off of the defense. So there's a lot of weaponry to throw to, and their offensive line made some improvements there as well. They do still have Andre Whitworth, who's coming back for another year. Also, you look at this team. You know, Brian Allen at center, Austin Blythe is a very good guard. He's coming from the Indianapolis Colts now, so he's going to be looking to fulfill that right guard spot. Rob Havenstein coming back once again, still there as bookend tackles with Andre Wentworth, and you bring up Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley is considered one of the best tight ends in football right now, and this offense is really driven by the running game. It's not so much a high passing attack. We noticed that as it got late to the season into the playoffs, they went away from Gurley. They started throwing a lot more, and they got out of their scheme. And that's all on Sean McVay. Being a young coach going into the playoffs and everything, he almost outthought himself on game planning week to week. And they needed to get back to that run game to open up the pass for Goff. And I think they will do that coming back into the season. Definitely got to use Todd Gurley. And with all these weapons now, it's going to be tough because they've developed chemistry last year. Coming into this year, they're all back again. The gang is back again. And I can only foresee them going right back to the playoffs. I can't see anything else. Now, they did take a little bit of hit in the defense. They lost some pieces there. Yep. But they still have – I think in my eyes, they still have a pretty decent defense, especially when you got Aaron Donald there in the middle. It's going to be hard just to stop him alone. So, yeah, we think this offense is going to take another step forward to get back Cooper Kupp, and Jared Goff we think he's going to play even better this year. Yeah,
last year he was in the top 4, so I only expect him to do better this year. So next, moving on to our top 10 projected quarterbacks for next year. Andrew Luck is number 3. This guy, again, it was funny. The first 3 weeks, this team looked scary. It was like, Andrew Luck isn't the same guy. We're not sure what's going to go on here. You know, they were losing, and all of a sudden, he turned back on and turned back into the old Andrew Luck that he was. And now they only add Devin Funchess there too, so that's a great pickup for them. They've got Chester Rogers. They have T.Y. Hilton still there. You know, lighting it up. I like the two tight ends that they have here. Jack Doyle took a step back last year.
He got injured.
Eric Ebron moved right in and took over and had like 14 touchdowns, I think, last year. And now he's looking to try and set Gronk's record. I don't think that's going to happen, but offense looks great. The offense, they built up the offensive line last year, you know, so again, we can only expect it to happen again this year. They helped out a little bit more on defense. But Andrew Luck, he looks like he's back to the top caliber elite quarterback that he was before the injury, and I'm excited for that. So that's why I'm thinking number 3 this year.
Yeah, you know, the thing with Andrew Luck is there was a lot of unexpectancy, a lot of doubt. You know, especially for Colts fans, they really weren't sure how well he was going to be able to bounce back and be that quarterback that they had in his prime. Now we're able to, for fans out there, a sigh of relief for Andrew Luck. We've seen what he can do this past season. And, yeah, early on in the season, we saw a little bit of hiccups. We saw a little bit of rust get kicked off his arm. You know, we knew, in a sense, we kind of figured that being that long away from football, there had to be some rust that built up, and he had to work through it. He did so, had a very successful season this past year. The offensive line is top-notch right now, which was once a major question mark, is now a strength. You look at their receiving core. T.Y. Hilton was injured last year, comes back healthy once again. Definitely one of Andrew Luck's favorite targets and deep threat. Devin Funchess, which is a interesting addition in free agency. A guy with huge amount of size, great speed for his size, and can catch well. Runs really good routes, actually, for a bigger type of receiver. And Chester Rogers kind of splashed on scene last season, like you mentioned, but I'm really excited to see what the rookie can do, Paris Campbell, coming out of Ohio State. I think I was very high on Paris Campbell. He was one of my top 5 receivers in the draft, and they got him in the second round because of all that defensive talent, that all like first round grade defensive talent. It helped push a lot of the receivers, a lot of the cornerbacks, a lot of the safeties down farther in the draft. So now a team like the Colts, who probably didn't think that Paris Campbell was going to be around, especially in the second round, ends up being there, and they managed to nab him. This receiving core could be a sleeper type of receivers going into 2019 season. Watch them look to explode on the scene. And Erica Brown, like you were saying, along with Jack Doyle there. Jack Doyle was hurt last year. Early on, he wasn't even heavily involved because Erica Brown made such an impact in receiving. Andrew Luck developed a very quick chemistry with him, and what turned out to be his go-to guy, especially in the red zone. And quite honestly, you look at a guy like Marlon Mack. He's another guy. He was banged up early, was out for some time, came back late into the season, and exploded. I mean, for limited games, he had over 900 rushing yards, almost 1,000 yards, and he missed a good chunk of the season. Pretty incredible. So look out for him. If he stays healthy, I mean, you might see a Marlon Mack who's going to get over 1,200 rushing yards, I think, this year. Along on top of that,
the way he was running seemed like he possibly could do that.
And along on top of that, he's going to be heavily utilized in the receiving game as well, making him even more deadly. So we really think this offense as a whole, after the additions that they made, that offensive line that's strong for Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck is back to himself again. That's why we have Andrew Luck at number 3.
All right, looking at the 2019 top projected quarterbacks, we have Tom Brady coming in at number 2. Last year, overall in yards, I think he was 7th. 2 in front of Eli Manning at number 9, which is surprising there too for some people. Tom Brady, though, again, always finds a way to do it despite how old he is, and the weapons that he has this year, again, has more weapons, so that's even scary. Despite having Gronkowski leave the team and retire, still has some great depth there at wide receiver, and Julian Edelman re-signed, so there's no reason to think that Tom Brady isn't still going to do what Tom Brady does and make it happen.
I know, right?
So.
And you look at this team once again. I mean, they have some healthy bodies coming back now. Isaiah Wynn, who they drafted a year ago, he was out for the season. But luckily, they pulled off a trade for Trent Brown last year from the Niners. He developed well, played left tackle for them, and was exceedingly, he overdid expectations. Was almost like locked down at left tackle. And now Isaiah Wynn, who, even though he played a short amount of time, he looked like a lockdown type of tackle. Unfortunate that he ended up getting injured, but now he's coming back healthy to really strengthen this line. The line overall after that position, you got Joe Thuney at left guard, David Andrews, all the usual guys are still there. Still going to be tough to get to Tom Brady. And what really improved for Brady, which is kind of scary, with the way this offensive scheme works, is last year didn't have the best receiving core. You know what I mean? Didn't have a great receiving core. They had Chris Hogan. They had Rob Gronkowski there at tight end. And Julian Edelman did a lot of work like he usually does. Now they re-signed Julian Edelman, but they drafted N'Keal Harry, who I was very high on, who I think N'Keal Harry fits this offense big time. It's almost like a perfect puzzle piece for Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and company. He's going to do extremely well, I think, his rookie year. And they also brought in guys like Demaryius Thomas, another big-bodied receiver to run routes. If he can stay healthy, he could be a big red zone target for them. Philip Dorsett, maybe not a lot of people know about this guy. He started his career with the Colts, but was often injured. He played extremely well for the Patriots going into the Super Bowl for them. And I think one of the biggest additions that they made in free agency is Dontrell Inman. This is a receiver from the Chargers. He played 1 year for the Colts, did very well with the Colts last season. Now I'm surprised he became a free agent from Indianapolis and now lands on with the Patriots. This is a very quick, shifty type of receiver who has hands. And the Patriots, this is what they do. They manage to find guys somehow, some way that are available to fit their scheme. And I think this makes their receiving core at least the best in that division in the AFC East. So, yeah. And then how can you not like the plethora of running backs that they got? They got 12? So, and they use them all. So it's pretty amazing. This offense is going to be even better, I think, than last year. Yes, they don't have Gronkowski. He retired, but still think that Tom Brady's going to be even better almost in this offense.
All right, and moving on now. Finally, we are at number 1. It is Drew Brees right here for our 2019 top 10 projected quarterbacks for next season here. Drew Brees still getting it done. Despite who he has there too, he's got a great running game. Even though they lose Mark Ingram. I mean, I still think they're going to do well there. With Sean Payton's offense, they're mixing it up. They have different guys, in different positions where you think they won't be. So they always make it happen. Drew Brees, Hall of Famer, I think possibly the greatest of all time. In that conversation. This year, I think he's going to look great and be one of the best right here, number one.
Yeah, Drew Brees. Here's a guy that just breaks his own records, right? Last
Yeah.
year, he broke his own QBR record. It's absolutely insane. I think what was it, 115.7 or something like that, but absolutely insane, efficient quarterback. Very smart, very deadly accurate. A guy even with a really good arm for a guy of stature. Now, despite how short he is compared to a lot of the quarterbacks that teams happen to look for. He's made every bit of his opportunities and is one of the best. And just like Jim was saying, he one of the best all time, maybe the best all time. I can't say any one player is best of all time. You know how I feel about that. But he's definitely one of the best ever. Super efficient, and he's able to do it with no matter who you give him. We all know that he has Michael Thomas there and company, basically. After that, there's a lot of guys that you just don't know. Ted Ginn, how long is this guy going to play for? He's still on the roster. He's going to play another year? How old is he? Is he 400 years old now? Pretty soon he's going to be in a wheelchair. And it's funny because Ted Ginn, still to this day, will challenge anybody to try to beat him in a 40-yard race.
Crazy.
And he puts up money. He puts up $10,000. He'll put up $10,000. If you can beat him in a race, he'll give you $10,000.
Wow.
So there you go. Anybody that's really fast out there and wants to give it a shot, hit up Ted Ginn.
Sounds good.
But yeah, and then you talk about the running backs now. Yeah, they lost Mark Ingram. They have Alvin Kamara, who's basically like 3 running backs in one. Pretty amazing type of guy, very elusive. And Latavius Murray was a new addition now. Because they lost Mark Ingram, they lost that kind of physical back. They brought in Latavius Murray from the Vikings to add that physical element to that backfield. And the offensive line, quite honestly, I consider the Saints offensive line one of the best in the league. They are young, they are really good, and good luck trying to get to Drew. They do a fantastic job. Along with the Saints defense, yeah, they 2 years ago were 3 years ago, I'll say one of the best defenses in the league. 2 years ago, looked terrible. And then this year, they were slow, but they got better as the season went on. So we'll have to wait and see what the Saints end up doing as a team. But overall, we think Drew Brees is going to end up the top spot this upcoming season.
There you go. And there's our 2019 top 10 projected quarterbacks. All right.
Yeah,
Joe,
projected. Yeah, there you go.
All right, there we go.
You're
We
good?
finished it up. Yeah, I'm good. Yes. All right, I want to take a step here because we just had Memorial Day up here,
Yeah,
Joe, and everything.
that's true.
And we wanted to take the time and do something special quick here, and we wanted to bring up, seeing it's Memorial Day, I wanted to bring up about Pat Tillman and his dedication that he had to our country. And he was a great, phenomenal football player. Not only that, but to leave his team and go fight for our country and lose his life doing so and trying to protect our freedoms. And a day that we celebrate people who had sacrificed the ultimate thing for freedom and what we do in our country. I just wanted to salute him for this one particular week here and celebrate Memorial Day, and let's not forget what he had done for our country.
Yeah, and never forget what anybody does too, as well. Pat Tillman was a great person. Never really met him or anything, but we know that whoever has met him, he's a very unselfish type of person, a very giving person, great family man, and was, obviously a phenomenal safety for the Arizona Cardinals. We really want to thank every veteran out there, every person that still is on active duty. We really do thank you very, very much. and all prayers go out to everybody.
Absolutely. And when I was looking up some of the players that had served and things, and there's a tremendous amount. I say to you, go out and search it and look, and there's a good handful, at least 20 to 40 players that had served in the military, and some of it has wrecked their careers, their football careers. They've sacrificed their careers and been injured in war and not been able to come back and play, and some have lost their lives, much like Pat Tillman.
Right.
But I wanted to celebrate him too, because he is one of the most known here, and a lot of people recognize him because he is one of the latest to have been one of those tremendous casualties of war. So happy Memorial Day to everybody out there. I hope everybody had a great, safe holiday. And Joe, I guess let's move it on right up to the drop, buddy. Let's do some other news.
This is the drop.
Ex-Titans Bengals cornerback Adam Pac-Man Jones retires finally from the NFL after 14 seasons. This is a guy that was no stranger to being in trouble. We'll put it that way. Always seemed to be in trouble. Got suspended sometimes. Had issues with drug abuse and everything, but Adam Pac-Man Jones decides to pack it in. The Green Bay Packers announced Sunday that legendary quarterback, unfortunately, Bart Starr, who was named the most valuable player of the first 2 Super Bowls ever, had died at the age of 85. Very sorry to the family and friends of Bart Starr. Wish you all the best. And it's a sad moment in football, as well as we just came from Memorial Day. So thank you to all the troops as well. New England Patriots tight end Ben Watson tested positive for testosterone and has been suspended by the NFL for 4 games. Ben Watson, this is the guy that, just recently decided to retire and then said, no, wait. You know what? On second thought, I want to come back. I want to play for the Patriots, maybe get a Super Bowl out of it before I retire. And then he gets caught with testosterone. So now you're suspended for 4 games. So.
Yeah, he's getting nabbed because, again, he was trying to work on healing himself. When he was done, you didn't expect to come back.
Yeah, there's no shortcut, buddy.
Yeah.
The NFL will nab you when they find out. Raiders just recently signed guard Richie Incognito after taking a season off. This is an interesting signing because Richie Incognito, a year or 2 ago, he got into trouble a little bit with the Buffalo Bills. He was people couldn't really grasp what was wrong with him mentally. It seemed like he had a mental problem. It ended up being found out that he struggles with anxiety. He struggles with a little bit of a little irrationale mentally. He had to get help. Took a season off. Did all that kind of thing. Now he's back into the NFL. Let's see how this all works out. I don't really know what to expect. Nick Foles won't attend Jaguars' OTAs for personal reasons, everybody. No return timetable has been announced. I fully expect Nick Foles to just he's taking the OTAs off. Whatever he's got to handle, he's got to handle. He'll be back by training camp, I would think.
We're talking about practice. Not a game.
Yeah,
not
Alan,
a game.
We're
talking about
right.
practice.
NFLPA Executive Director DeMaurice Smith sent an email to every NFL agent saying that the union is, quote unquote, advising players to plan for a work stoppage of at least a year in length. This guy, DeMaurice Smith, he does this every time there's a new CBA about to occur. He always... I think he's one of the. I always think he's one of the problems in terms of negotiation. I think he expects way too much, and there's not a whole lot of give and take with him, thus making a work stoppage very, very possible. When the collective bargaining agreement ends after the 2020 season is when they will start getting back to those league meetings, trying to negotiate a new CBA. Saints signed running back Javoris Buck Allen to a contract. So they add another running back to that roster there, and even strengthening it up because Buck Allen, we all know that he suffered an injury. The Ravens, obviously, they didn't want him back. So he was out there in free agency. Saints and able to grab him. And let's see how it all pans out. We got to see if he can make the team at this point. Former 49ers' 11th overall draft pick in 2010. Tackle Anthony Davis was reinstated by the NFL this past week and subsequently released by the Niners right away. He's now a free agent and is allowed to sign with any NFL team. This is I'm very curious to see, like, Anthony Davis, a very high first-round pick, kind of spurned the 49ers young in his career, was only in the NFL for about a couple years, decided he wanted to retire all of a sudden. And it wasn't because of injuries. It wasn't because of a concussion. It wasn't because of anything at all, really. It was just because he kind of lost the love for the game. And now you mean to tell me now you want to come back at age 29 and say, you know what, I miss it. I want to come back and play for someone. All I got to say is because of that uncertainty, good luck trying to find a team. Yeah. I don't know who's going to sign this guy. You've been out too long, bro. Been out too long. Chris Harris Jr., Broncos cornerback, have agreed to a restructured deal for this upcoming 2019 season with a $12 million contract. Chris Harris Jr. wanted more money from the Broncos if he wanted to stay. If they didn't want to pay him, he wanted to be traded. Wanted out of there. Well, he got a little bit of a bump in salary here for 1 year, but I question the re-signing here because... or I should say upgrade in pay. With John Elway, I think this is a bad decision yet again. I think a guy in Chris Harris Jr., don't get me wrong, he is a good corner. But he's also a cornerback that gets injured a lot. So what happens if he gets injured once again this season and, he's just making money for nothing? Bears' tight end Trey Burton is out of OTAs after a hernia surgery they just recently had. Head coach Matt Nagy expects the tight end to return to the team by training camp. And this is an injury that Trey Burton had in the playoffs. Wasn't able to play in the playoffs because of this hernia issue that he had. It's still bothering him. He said, you know what? Right now, let's go get it taken care of, heal up, and you'll be ready for training camp. And the NFL could push. Get this, everyone. I want to know from you know-it-alls out there if you either think this is a good idea or a bad idea. But the NFL could push for a 18-game schedule or expanded playoffs in labor talks that are coming. So they're going to be discussing whether they should extend this regular season or extend the playoffs. Interesting, right?
How do you extend the playoffs by adding more teams, or is
well, that's the only reason, right?
I don't want that.
That's it.
I'd rather say if you're going to extend the season.
To be honest with you, my opinion, don't do either.
Yeah,
do not do either. I think the NFL, they get a little too wacky, a little too creative, especially with penalties that they've either heavily enforce this over that, or let's create a whole new rule, or I think they try to change the game way too much. I think players get injured enough already. Why extend the regular season so they can have a greater chance of being hurt? The teams get hurt, the players get hurt more. And expanding the playoffs, listen, if your team did not play well enough to make the playoffs, why should you give another opportunity to a team that may perhaps does not belong there? But also, you could also debate this as well and say whether there are teams that kind of just missed the cut in playoffs, but they were better teams than some of the teams that kind of backed their way in. We look at the Tennessee Titans before. They backed their way in, didn't have a great schedule, but just because they ended up wild card, you know?
Well, the NBA has like an extended playoffs kind of deal. Like they have like an 8th seed and stuff, and it sucks. NBA sucks, and then they extend it out further to where you have to wait another like 2 or 3 days. I think the NBA finals are just starting like tonight or something. After
Who cares?
They've been I mean, yeah. I mean, it's dumb when you start messing with it like that to try and soak up more money or keep it going further along in the year so you can constantly have football. Right. We already do enough to talk about football nonstop. We could talk about football every day. You know what I'm saying?
All year round,
we
baby.
Don't need all this, extra stuff here and there. And you're talking about safety of the players. Adding more games doesn't seem like a safe idea today.
No, I don't. I think that's a terrible idea. The only thing that I could see is maybe extending the playoffs, but then it would have to be.
I don't want it watered down. You already sometimes when you get division leaders in there and they possibly win by like 7-2 or 7-9 record, that's already kind of watered down in a sense, too. Like,
That's what I mean.
Really have a chance. So when you're adding like wild card spots that might be like 500. I have a problem with that in fantasy football, let alone my regular football.
But here's the thing, and this is the argument for this decision, is that there are teams in the same division, and both teams have really good record, but because the first seed in that division, they automatically get in. The other team that's second, that has a really good record, that could be 12-4, who is a really good team, they don't get in because of how the wild card situation is formed and everything, and they end up.
I say that maybe in that sense, maybe make it more a little bit like college then too.
Where
so
they
then
pick the best team.
Best team.
Best
Whether
teams.
you might be that division's champion, you can still be that division's champion, but you're not going to be able to make that the top seeding.
And you know what? I'm all for.
I'm down with that.
Not really expanding the playoffs in that sense, like the physical sense, but I'm all for. Just pick
Stronger teams.
after division winners. After division winners, you pick the best two teams to make the playoffs by record, and then if you have a tie, then there's always a tiebreaker. So I'm down with that.
We'll see. All right, is that the drop? That's the drop for tonight.
That's it, baby.
That's it. All right, that's it. Mike Tech had chimed in. I don't know if he's still on here too. He came up with a list. He is one of our great loyal know-it-alls here.
That's it.
And
real quick, Jim, I just want to kind of jump in here real quick.
Sure.
If anybody out there is wondering how do you become a know-it-all?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, let me tell you. Let
Right.
me just drop this on you right here. It's very easy. You can do it one of multiple ways, actually.
There's multiple ways we're streaming right now, so you can do it by any one of the platforms.
Yeah, so if you want to, you can go ahead and join, follow us on YouTube, and just hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell if you feel in your hearts to do so, so you get all the latest and greatest updated content that we have to offer. Follow us on Football on the Know Show on YouTube. Also, you can go and check us out on Facebook if you haven't already. Football on the Know Show there as well.
Yep.
Go ahead
Join
and
the
just
Facebook group.
Yep, and just join our group, and all of a sudden, look, you're a know-it-all. It's that simple.
Yeah.
It's just a click away, everybody. It's so easy.
That's right.
Why not
you get
do
to
it?
Talk to others just like you.
Why say no when it feels so good?
Yeah,
to say
it does.
yes.
And did you mention Twitter?
And
already?
Twitter, it's one of the major platforms that we use to get out that new updated information from around the NFL. Follow us on Twitter at FB_know, and you'll be pleasantly surprised what pops up there.
There you go. So I want to thank everybody who's watching us via Periscope, Facebook Live, or YouTube. So that's great, and it's great having more people to be involved in this conversation.
And that's what this is about.
So
I mean, we're establishing a football family here.
Yeah,
we're
Mike Tackett,
welcoming him in.
He says right here he loves our list, which is great. That's
Cool.
awesome. We appreciate it. He gets him more excited for the season. And he wanted to take it a step further, which is great. That's
Okay,
what we like.
excellent.
All right, and he made his own list. Now it's the top half quarterbacks in his opinion. So he's ranking them as the best of out of the league.
Okay.
The top half. This is the top tier.
Okay.
I'm going
What do
to
you
go
got?
backwards, forwards. I mean, everybody here can read it in the comments, but I'm going to go Mitch Trubisky at number 16. Marcus Mariota at 15. Deshaun Watson at 14. Matt Ryan at 13. Carson Wentz at 12. Ben Roethlisberger at 11. Baker Mayfield at 10. 9 is Phillip Rivers. Jimmy Garoppolo is number 8. Andrew Luck is 7. Aaron Rodgers is 6. Jared Goff is 5. Russell Wilson is number 4. Drew Brees number 3. Tom Brady number 2. And Patrick Mahomes number 1. This is a crazy list.
And the only thing that I would say is I like the list. Don't get me wrong. But Patty Mahomes, to me, is like we've only seen 1 year from the guy. I think it's hard to just kind of project him as the number one best quarterback right now, especially let's see how good he is when he starts to miss out on talent that could not or might not be on the field this year. You look at Tyreek Hill's situation, where the NFL is heavily monitoring that situation, investigating it. It's back in court again. So that's going to be interesting to see. Now, if he misses out on Tyreek Hill, You know, they already banished Kareem Hunt away from Kansas City. Tyreek Hill could be next. He might not even be able to get back into football if all this child abuse and threatening and all these if all of these stories that are out there are true.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole situation we're going to be evaluating and keeping a close eye on. But if that's the case, who does he got? Sammy Watkins, Travis Kelce, and who? So you know what I mean? So it's like basically he goes from having really good weaponry to having just two guys again. So we'll have to wait and see how that all shakes out. But, you know, Tom Brady, you can't really debate that because he's been so successful in that offense that New England runs. Drew Brees, one of the best. Russell Wilson, he's a guy that does it all. So, I mean, totally get that. Jared Goff coming into his own with all the weapons that he has, and Sean McVay running an offense that fits Goff. Aaron Rodgers, I'm okay with him being at 6 because of the injury factor, because he hasn't been the healthiest quarterback. Even though we consider him being as one of the best as well, he's been banged up recently. So I could see that too. Andrew Luck, I mean, and don't.
My issue here is Jimmy G over top of Phillip Rivers. I don't get that. That's a lot of, again, it's over what, 7 games that he's really played or something where he has won a lot of them consecutively. I understand that.
I mean, you can debate that.
But,
but Jimmy G, when he plays, he is pretty.
He does look decent at times.
Pretty successful.
But we'll see.
You know, he's a little. I think the reason why he's got Jimmy G ahead of Rivers is because he's a little bit more careful with the football, doesn't give as many turnovers.
Again, over here, I would take Eli Manning over Marcus Mariota any day. So I don't see Mariota being in a top 15 at all whatsoever. Mitch Trubisky I'd even see above Mariota. I'm trying to think of what other starters might be out there.
I know there's some starters out there that kind of had a raw deal the past couple of seasons. You know what I mean?
But it's a good list, though. Definitely, it's fresh.
Yeah, and you can throw out anybody out there. Like, what's going to happen with Nick Foles now with the Jaguars?
Yeah.
How successful could he be with that team? I know it's a young receiving core, but I think good things are going to happen with that offense now having a very solid quarterback in that position. I watch out for Jacksonville this year, just because of that. Also, you look at guys like Derek Carr, who inherited a basically completely new receiving core, a lot of weapons there now that he's able to utilize. You look at Kirk Cousins. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but Kirk Cousins, as much as he gets bashed for being a terrible quarterback or what have you, he produced really good numbers last season.
Yeah,
with that
absolutely. And I think the only times he falters is when he feels like he has nothing. When he was in Washington those last couple of years, he had wide receivers that were just dropping flat-out balls that he had right there for touchdowns, and he's just frustrated. He can't do it all himself. So, I mean, when then he tries to force things in there. So, I mean, it happens. It's a great list, though. I appreciate Mike throwing that in there and checking it out. Everybody else, if they've got a list out there and want to throw one out there, why not? Let's check them out.
Definitely. Or if you want to, I actually encourage our know-it-alls to try this. And if you are, if you're all gung-ho about this and think you can develop a list, I'm telling you right now, it is not easy. Not easy at all. And it depends on what kind of a list you're putting out. So like Mike Tackett, we saw he's got he ranks each quarterback how good he thinks they are. And then for ours, it's about we're trying to project our top 10 quarterbacks for this upcoming season, where they might end up at the end of the 2019 season. That's hard enough. I employ all the know-it-alls out there to give it a shot. It's very, very difficult. And if you're able to complete it, top 10, even a top 5 is hard. We'd like for you to share it on our group page, share it in the comments below, whether you're on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, anything like that. We're interested and curious to see what everyone comes up with.
All right, Joe, it's time for our fact of the day here. It's an in the know fact of the day.
What do you got, buddy?
What do we got? It's something juicy. It's something I think some people don't know.
Right.
So bring it out there. In college, the Notre Dame sports information director convinced future Washington Redskins quarterback and NFL MVP Joe Theismann to change the pronunciation of his name. It was Theismann. Changed it from Theismann to Theismann so it would rhyme with Heisman. The new Mr. Theismann would not win his Heisman, finishing second to Jim Plunkett.
That's
So there you
something that
go.
I never knew.
Yeah,
That's
it
pretty
was
funny.
Theismann, and then he wanted to make it. How about you make it snappy? So then when you
Yeah,
win
yeah.
the Heisman, it's Joe
It's
Theismann gets the Heisman.
Gets the Heisman. I like
and
it.
Lo and behold, he doesn't get it. So
Nice.
how about that? It's an interesting little factoid.
Interesting.
It is. Yes, that's right. It's the fact of the day. So
That's right.
that's what we do.
Well done, Jim.
Yeah, hey, no problem. I
done.
love coming up with these little things,
good.
here and there. It makes my brain work. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and hopefully everybody gets a little smarter out there, too, and they can throw that out there. That's right. Joe Theismann really is Theismann. I wonder if somebody comes up to him if they see him now. You know what I mean,
Hey,
too? If you know that, you're like,
Hey, Mr. Theismann.
Mr. Theismann. You're like, what? How did you know that?
No one's
how's
called me that in
Heisman?
years.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So, all right, we're gonna move on to our next segment here too as well. Here we go. We're gonna go right up to it. Last week we had the AFC East biggest questions. This week it is the AFC South's biggest questions, Joe.
It is.
Spin out of control. There we go. All right, the biggest questions here for the AFC South. And we're going to move up to who are we going to do first here? We're going to go do the Indianapolis Colts, Joe. All right, the Colts. All right, the first question I have, now one of the biggest questions I have leading into 2019 for the Indianapolis Colts, did they do enough to have a competitive defense here? They drafted Rock Ya-Sin, signed Justin Houston here. Was that enough for them to help project them and do better and not giving up the points there on defense?
Yeah, and you look at this team right now, and, this is, you look at Malik Hooker, a guy who is definitely he's one of the best younger safeties in the league. He's really, he's all over. He's like a ball hawk. But the problem with Malik Hooker is injuries. He seems to get injured every single year, which has only been a couple of seasons. Now he's got to stay healthy for this team to really kind of take a boost here. But they do have some cornerbacks that, like you brought up Rock Ya-Sin, and reports out of Indianapolis is that not only is Rock Ya-Sin superseding expectations right now as a rookie, I mean, he's really starting to get physical in OTAs. He's kind of jawing off at times. He's not acting like a rookie, like bashful a little bit, maybe, maybe just saying I'm just going to follow the vets type of thing. No, he's stepping up. He's mouthing off. There was some heated discussions between Rock Ya-Sin and Devin Funchess. I mean, things are getting heated in Indy. So, and it's good to see that because a lot of the younger corners that they have are starting to, let alone develop, but they're also playing at a high level already, including Rock Ya-Sin as a rookie. So maybe the cornerbacks are better than people are going to think this upcoming year for the Colts. I think that's another improvement, as well as they were able to add Justin Houston now, a veteran pass rusher, one of the best pass rushers in Kansas City's franchise history there. He comes in. He's an older vet, but they needed help with pass rushing, so they brought in Justin Houston. Right now, it looks like he's listed as a linebacker, a strong side linebacker. Interesting to see. They do run a 4-3, so I'm wondering, is he just signed to be a pass rushing specialist only? Is he going to just come in on pass rushing downs, come out on running downs? Actually, he could stay in that point. But when it comes to passing downs, I think he might rotate out. You look at their defensive line, Danico Autry, Marcus Hunt they bring back, Jabal Sheard, who they managed to bring over from New England, Taquan Lewis, who's starting to develop and come into his own as a pass rusher, rookie last year. This will be his second year. They have a nice young linebacking core. Darius Leonard, an animal of a linebacker. And mind you, one of the guys that got shafted from the Pro Bowl. I mean, I was actually surprised at that. So did they do enough? I think they could be a sleeper type of defense, but it all hinges on the development of these young guys. I can't give a definitive absolute yes, but let's wait. I mean, training camp is around the corner. Let's see how these guys develop together and so forth. So, I mean, if I had to give an answer, I'd say, yeah, they're getting there. They're close. Let's wait and see what they can do on the football field, though. We'll have to wait and see preseason when we see those games. So, yeah, I think they're close. Could they be improved? Yes. They're getting a lot of the guys healthy back. They added some positions of need for pass rushing. So, yeah, in a sense, I think they have improved enough.
All right, now my next question, one of the biggest questions I have here for the Indianapolis Colts, can Marlon Mack carry the load himself? We saw last year it was his first opportunity to be the star running back there. He did get injured. He played in 12 games last year and came up with 908 yards and 9 touchdowns. Wow. Plus he got a passing touchdown, receiving touchdown too. I mean, so this guy did stupendous. Just now we need to stay healthy here for him.
Right.
He still had Naheem Himes and Jordan Wilkins there who shared the load last year, and last year they combined for 650 yards. And this year they also bring in Spencer Ware too, so in that for the running back position too to help out. So that's probably a little bit of insurance for Marlon Mack, but do you think now he can just carry the workload here and, like you said, possibly be that 1,200-yard running back here for them?
Yeah, you also got to mention Frank Gore. Frank Gore was a mentor for Miles Mack while he was there in Indy, and I think he taught him a lot. I think because of that teaching that he got from Frank Gore, it made him a better back, and we saw it in limited action, mind you, to almost eclipse 1,000 yards. That's pretty amazing. So I have high hopes for Marlon Mack. Now, can he eclipse 1,200 rushing and then say maybe like 600 passing? I think he could, especially this upcoming year. But again, it all comes down to staying healthy. Can he stay healthy? Can he be that back to take the full workload like you were mentioning and just go forward? I think he has some nice complementary backs, with the backfield, Naeem Hines and so forth, but it's going to be on him. He's got to stay healthy. I think, does he have the ability to be the featured back? Absolutely, 100%. I mean, especially with this offensive line, how good that is. There's no questions in my mind that he can or cannot be a featured back. Absolutely. But then again, he has to stay healthy, just like any other player. So I hope he stays healthy because I'm really intrigued to see what this offense can do with Marlon Mack in the backfield.
There you go. That's our two biggest questions for the Indianapolis Colts. We are looking at the AFC South and asking their biggest questions here. Next, we have the Tennessee Titans now. There's a lot of questions, I think, around this team, too. I mean,
a lot.
I think some of the questions here for them initially is, who is their offensive coordinator? Arthur Smith is the new offensive coordinator, taking over from Matt LaFleur. And Matt LaFleur, I don't think, had a very great resume before he started becoming the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. So that's a whole other conversation here. But my question here for the Tennessee Titans is Marcus Mariota's job safe here now that they bring in Ryan Tannehill to maybe light a little fire under him here, saying, listen, now you're just guaranteed the job here, because he does have his turnover problems, but then he also stays injured, trying to move it out of the pocket, make things happen with his legs. They do sign Roger Saffold from the Rams there on the offensive line to help out. They add Adam Humphries, too, for another target for him. So they've got him, pickup. Corey Davis, Delaney Walker, Jonnu Smith still. So, I mean, he's got all the weapons he could have for success here. Yeah. But with Ryan Tannehill there, who's been a proven quarterback, sufficient quarterback in the NFL, right there as a backup or fighting for that job, it's put it up or shut up here for this year for Marcus Mariota. So what do you think?
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. It's the best way to put it. It's put up or shut up, because I know that there's a lot of people out there that are against Marcus Mariota and him even being a starter at this point for the Tennessee Titans. He does add his mobility. He is a very smart quarterback. Unfortunately for Marcus is that he's had to deal with offensive scheme after offensive scheme and had to relearn over and over and over. Hasn't really been given a chance to be comfortable in one scheme and then develop that way. Now, I believe it's going to be somewhat similar as what Matt LaFleur once had. Arthur Smith is going to carry that torch now as the offensive coordinator. You bring up who Arthur Smith is. Well, we don't really know much about Arthur Smith. Not a lot of people do, but here's kind of like a little small background check on Arthur Smith. Now, Tennessee Titans used to have a head coach by the name of Mike Munchak. A lot of you Titans fans know him very well. A lot of people hated him because he was absolutely terrible at running a team. And he had Arthur Smith as his offensive quality coach in 2012. Forward that to another head coach. They fired Mike Munchak. They move on from him. They go to Ken Wisenhunt. Ken Wisenhunt kept Arthur Smith around and made him an assistant tight ends coach. You're like, okay, he's getting some, he's moving up a little bit here and there. And then Wisenhunt gets canned. Arthur Smith somehow stays in the organization even after Mike Mularkey,
Mike Mularkey comes
gets hired. And he stays around, and Mike Mularkey kept as a head coach for the 2016 season, and Smith was, once again, he got a little bit of an upgrade. Now he is the tight ends coach. So you're like, okay, he's slowly getting there. Maybe let's see what happens next. Well, everybody knows Mularkey gets fired. And this guy, this is kind of funny how he stays in the same organization even after head coaching fire. Now Mike Vrabel is the head coach. Mike Vrabel keeps him around as the tight ends coach still for the 2018 season. And now we're currently, Matt LaFleur, who was the offensive coordinator, he takes the head coaching job with Green Bay. Now Arthur Smith is now the offensive coordinator. My major concern here as an NFL fan, that resume that I just read to all of you, are you really excited or confident in a guy who's just basically been a tight ends coach or some kind of an assistant in another capacity?
Former offensive lineman in college.
Right.
He hasn't had a lot of
there's
coaching experience. Like you hear the names Byron Leftwich, who has been a coach for a lot of different things for a long time.
Ex-quarterback.
Who might possibly be another head coach on the up and coming. For this guy to step in, it seems more of a what do they call that when for the short term until they find a head coach, this guy will be the guy that's going to do it. But we'll see. He said he's going to keep a lot of the things the same. He's really excited about a lot of stuff with his offense.
He's very excited.
But he's also said he's not afraid to call plays here. He's been around long enough that he can do it. But we'll see.
He's also, and here's the funny thing, he's also said he's going to lean on other
lean on
coaches
help.
to help him call plays or game plan for upcoming weeks.
Yeah.
That's a little concerning to me.
Yeah, there's some red flags
there. A guy
there,
that doesn't have any real experience in calling plays, and he wasn't even an assistant offensive coordinator to where he would be right underneath LaFleur and getting teachings from LaFleur as, game planning, calling plays in certain situations, creating audibles. So I really question this move. Now, and they had time to go find a veteran, a guy, an assistant offensive coordinator or something of that sort from another team and bring him in. They still chose to do this. That's a little concerning for me. We'll have to wait and see. Does he, shake things up a little bit from what Matt LaFleur did? Maybe he runs a little bit more. Maybe he calls a little bit more balanced to plays. It'll all shake out in the end. We'll be very curious to see how all that shakes out.
Yeah, either way, the team's going to be looking for more offense because they were dead last just about in the NFL last year in scoring and offense. So, he needs to step things up.
Yeah.
And we'll see what kind of fingerprint he has on this whole offense here after LaFleur because he said he was going to keep a lot of it all the same. But, again, if he ends up playing in Green Bay and everything's the same, then LaFleur is going to wipe him up.
Right.
We'll
so
see.
Going back to Mariota and Tannehill.
Yeah, so I think he's safer.
The addition of Tannehill here is interesting to me. A guy that has had success as a starter, but for whatever reason, the Miami Dolphins have made the decision that they no longer require his services, want to move on, and they do so. Tennessee picks him up. This is, to me, it's more of an insurance policy right here. You say put up or shut up with Marcus Mariota.
I like the signing altogether.
It's a great signing because every team needs a great backup. You know what I mean? And we've seen it happen to the Philadelphia Eagles who were making their Super Bowl run or playoff push, and they had Nick Foles in their back pocket. Carson Wentz gets injured. Nick Foles comes to the rescue and wins them a Super Bowl. So that just goes to show teams how important that backup quarterback role is because if, in fact, your starter happens to go down with an injury and he's done, most likely your season's just plain over. It's over. But Tannehill here, interesting addition. I think he could end up, if Marcus Mariota falters at all, if he gets injured, because we've seen him get injured, often with nicks and bruises and little hamstring pulls and what have you. Ryan Tannehill, if he's given an opportunity here with Tennessee and he exceeds what Marcus Mariota, whatever he's able to do, you could see a complete quarterback flip here, where Mariota becomes the backup, potential Trey Bait later on down the road or during the season, and Tannehill just kind of takes over the starting job. Now, Tannehill fits this team too, because not only is he a fairly accurate thrower of the football, he's also a very mobile guy, much like Mariota. Maybe not as fast, but he fits it perfectly. And with all these weapons, like we mentioned beforehand, the much improved receiving core. I'm a huge fan of Adam Humphries, who got added to this team. This is a team that needed this boost in receiving of wide receivers. You have Tajay Sharp, who's always been kind of solid for them, a number 2 guy, but I think he might end up losing that job to A.J. Brown, who they drafted this year, guy that's great at running routes. Corey Davis, one of their definite number 1 type of receiver, definitely a favorite. And you got guys like Taywan Taylor, who's very shifty in the slot. This is going to be this has to be the season where Marcus Mariota has to prove himself, because now he's not only – it's not like he's changing an offense completely. He's coming back again for another stint with this offense with even more weapons. Now there can no longer be an excuse for Marcus Mariota. If he doesn't improve from last year, then I think maybe they make a quarterback change. Or it could be as early as maybe before week 8, before halfway through the season. They might make a change to see what Tannehill can do.
Absolutely.
And you also go into the training camp battle. Now, if Tannehill just outshines Marcus Mariota, don't be shocked.
Yeah.
Don't be shocked, even if you're a Tennessee Titan fan. Don't be shocked that they pull the trigger and say Tannehill's our starter going into the regular season.
Yeah.
Marcus Mariota, you're on the trade block. Sorry.
Yep. Why not? Yeah, it's it's the Patriot way. They're trying to make it like the Patriots over there, and I think the scheme they're trying to run is pretty similar. I think Ryan Tannehill's a great fit for all that. So I think that's a great thing going down there, and a great battle. I'm intrigued to see what goes on there.
And on top of that, you look at their defense, and their defense is pretty darn good.
Now, talking about the defense here, the one question I have here coming up for the next one now, have they done enough to get back into the playoffs with the moves and changes they've made here with this team?
This is what makes this team good. I mean, their defense is kind of underrated still. When they brought in last year, they brought in Malcolm Butler, to pair up with Adoree Jackson, who was a very ascending young player at the cornerback position. Now you got kind of 2 shutdown corners, if you will, on top of a very talented linebacking core. Now they do run a 3-4 scheme. And with the 3-4 scheme, you got to have depth at linebacker, right? I mean, you look at this now. They bring in old man wheelchair Cameron Wake he was defensive end position for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah,
now
I thought he was going to retire a Dolphin.
Right. Now is coming into the Titans defense, and he's going to be more of a pass rusher off the edge for them at the left outside linebacker position. But they still have Wesley Woodyard at the inside linebacker position as well as Jayon Brown, amongst guys like Harold Landry, who they took in the draft last year. Very explosive, great pass rusher. Rashaan Evans, another guy who they drafted last year, who is making a big impact as well as at the inside linebacker position. I mean, and Camille, let me see, what's his name here? Kamalai Correa. He came from the Baltimore Ravens, another guy who's a lethal edge type rusher, edge linebacker for them. And then you look at their defensive front. They got guys like Jarrell Casey there at nose. And where is – wait a second. There's another guy that I'm missing here that I was going to talk about. Anyway. There's a lot of talent.
Yeah.
Just let's say that. And then you look at their safety. They got Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard, a very young safety, but Pro Bowl level. He's definitely locked down in the back end. Kenny Vaccaro came from the Saints over to the Tennessee Titans and is making a name for himself right now in Tennessee. Is almost ascending in a sense with this defensive scheme and really playing at a high level. So when you name all these pieces, plus, mind you, this draft right here, they managed to pick up possibly one of the best defensive linemen in the draft. A guy that had a little bit of problems in college, slid way down. Jeffrey Simmons. Watch out for this kid. This kid is an absolute juggernaut at D-tackle. I don't know where they plan on playing him. I think they might plan on playing him in nose tackle because it's a 3-4. But he's athletic enough, and he has decent speed for his size. They could put him at D-end to kind of really wreak havoc in the backfield. So that's another guy. So do I think they did enough? I think they did absolutely enough.
Absolutely
I mean,
enough.
I think this team is going to take another step forward and be even tougher than they were last season.
And the problem is with this division, you had a team with the Jacksonville Jaguars who the year before last made it to the AFC Championship game.
One of the best defenses
the
that
Colts this year who played well into the playoffs, and then the Houston Texans too as well were
Very
a playoff team.
competitive.
So
Very
this is
competitive.
a very intriguing division here, and we'll see
Absolutely.
what happens. Now the competitiveness altogether is pretty nice. So let's move on to the next team here we're going to talk about, and it is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And they have a lot of different changes they did here, too. They go, like you said, they grabbed Nick Foles here, so now that's a quarterback. They move on from Blake Bortles. Now he's playing backup. Did they where is it? Here we go. With Telvin Smith now taking the season off, what will the Jags do? Najee Good, is he going to step up, move on? I mean, they did draft Quincy Williams in the 3rd round. So what are they going to do with Telvin Smith saying he will not play for anybody else, No,
he's not. And he's not getting traded either. So, I mean, he's a Pro Bowl outside linebacker. He's not going anywhere. So everybody can calm down on that. Telvin Smith is going to be there. He talked to Shaq Khan, the owner of the Jaguars, and everything. Everything's worked out. He himself has said that he's got some personal business that he wants, like family personal business that he wants to attend to. So he's taking the season off. And the Jaguars, whatever conversation that they had, they seem to be okay with it. Not excited about it because obviously they're missing out on that talented of a player. But they pulled off a free agent signing that I thought was absolutely huge from the Green Bay Packers, Jake Ryan, a guy that I'm sorry, he is just quietly one of the best linebackers in the league. A guy that played extremely at a high level for the Green Bay Packers. I don't know how they managed to just let him go in free agency, but there he is. So Jake Ryan, who is a middle linebacker, I could definitely see Myles Jack just sliding over to that weak linebacker role that Telvin Smith once had. And Jack has played outside linebacker for them. You think about the days when Paul Posluszny was the middle linebacker. Myles Jack got drafted. They just had him at outside linebacker. So I don't think that's a difficult transition for him at all. Myles Jack is just going to move over. Jake Ryan's going to be plugged for the middle linebacker role, and nothing really to worry about. I think that's the most logical decision that I think that they're going to make, and their defense is not going to suffer, I think, from it.
All right. Now, the next question, the big question I have for the Jacksonville Jaguars is, with Nick Foles at the quarterback position, will we see one of these wide receivers have a breakout season? Have they signed Chris Conley? They still have Dede Westbrook, Marquise Lee, Keelan Cole, which we were really high on. Thought he might have a breakout year last year. He did have the spectacular catch, though, too. That was amazing to watch.
Amazing one-handed catch.
And, I mean, these guys, they're talented, but they just couldn't get it going. Was it Blake Bortles altogether? Was it that they had injuries at running back? So then you can't really run the game plan that you want, without your key player there, with Leonard Fournette. So hopefully you have everybody back here healthy. You got Nick Foles, who is one of the most accurate quarterbacks out there. If you look at all of his stats, he's up there. Right. And so what do you think? You think one of these guys comes out here and shocks some people here?
I mean, I mean, as well as I do, Jim, like we were extremely high on Keelan Cole last year. We saw what he did the previous year, 2 years ago. He had like 700 receiving yards. He had I want to say he had like 7 touchdowns or something like that, something around there. And he was the go-to guy for Blake Bortles. He was a guy that kind of splashed on scene low-key, and that's why we thought last season he was going to have a breakout year. But Blake Bortles, it really was Blake Bortles. I think his accuracy at times was poor, and sometimes his decision-making was poor. So I think now that you have a much better quarterback in Nick Foles, I think that you're only going to see improvement with these the wide receiving core now. The only problem that I have with this Jaguars, with these Jaguars wide receivers is Marquise Lee. Guys like Marquise Lee, guys like Day Westbrook, DJ Shark had problems with the drops. Hopefully he can shore up his hands and become a little bit better receiver to contribute. But Day and Marquise Lee, they had issues staying healthy. So right there and then, I almost think that that's going to be a major issue. I think Marquise Lee has never once been able to stay healthy for the whole season. I think Westbrook is the type of receiver that as long as he doesn't take too many big hits, he'll be fine. But the real guy, I'm just going to go back to Keelan Cole. I mean, Keelan Cole has speed. He has size. He's got great hands. He runs good routes. He's got everything that you need to become a great receiver. I think he should end up being the number 1 wide receiver like he was last year. We still got to go through training camp to see where everybody shakes out in terms of their tiers. But Keelan Cole, I fully expect to have a breakout season with a much better quarterback with Nick Foles. A quarterback like Nick Foles, he's very accurate. So, and that's what this team needs. They need some production and results, and I think Nick Foles is going to bring that to this receiving core. So I'm going to say Keelan Cole once again.
All right, yeah, I'm agreeing with you there. And now with we saw this draft this year, and the amount of talent that slipped as far as they did. Surprisingly enough, the Jacksonville Jaguars were there, and they were able to land Josh Allen now. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was spectacular for them. And once again, they go defense again, and they only just pile it on. So now, you've heard a lot of murmurs about whether Josh Allen is this and that. Now, is he strictly a pass rusher, or is he going to be able to do some other things with this defense here?
Yeah, Josh Allen is a special player. Coming from the Kentucky University, we saw that if you haven't checked him out, he's got a tremendous highlight reel to watch. A guy that's very hard to block right off the edge. He does a great job dipping his shoulder underneath the block and pushing through, and he utilizes his speed. This is a guy that's not only big, he's 6'5", around 250, 260, but he runs a 4.6 40. I mean, that's in itself nuts. So, I mean, a guy with that kind of speed, with that size, and he's strong, but he's not he's not Khalil Mack by any means. He's not a guy that can, set up against a block, play great against a run. I think he's a guy that right now they have him slated for the Jaguars defense. They have him playing at linebacker, and that's really the position that he played in Kentucky. So I think he's going to fit very nicely with this. Do I think he's a one-trick pony in terms of just being a pass rusher? No. You've seen on tape that he is also a really good cover guy, even though he has that size, but he also has that speed to go with it. I think he'll be able to stay with guys like tight ends, like big tight ends, and play like drop in the zone and be able to read and react on the quarterback. I think he's going to be a great all-around player. Even at the outside linebacker position, everybody saw him as like more of a D end or just standing up and rushing off the edge. I see him as much more. I think he's also a really good cover guy, and he'll be able to come off the edge and play against the run. So I think he's going to be all around great for the Jaguars.
Excellent. There you go. That's my big questions for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And last but not least, we have the Houston Texans, who I think had a few questions last year to be answered. What was going to go on with Deshaun Watson? Was he going to be able to stay healthy? How is he looking? One thing I gotta say here is, for one of the big questions, did they do enough to help the offensive line? Because he led the NFL. They led the NFL last year with sacks allowed, and that's 62. Year before that, they were second with 56. So Deshaun Watson has taken some hits, and for a guy that's we've known, just like with say Robert Griffin III, he's good, mobile, can move, make some plays with his legs and stuff, but that could lead to him being injured, some more, and really suffering on his career.
Right.
Did they do enough to help out the sack situation? They've got Matt Khalil. They've drafted Titus Howard and Max
Say hi to
Sharping.
Shadow, everybody.
There's Shadow visiting. Hey, Shadow. All right, get out of here. And so drafted Max Sharping too in the second round. So they go definitely offensive line here in the first 2 rounds of the draft.
We're having technical difficulties right
and
now.
and they get Matt Khalil. So it looks like they're trying to help him out and keep Deshaun
him
Watson
upright.
upright. So do you think they did enough here to make it happen?
Yeah, this is a position on the offensive line that is in much need of upgrades. And we, just like Jim just mentioned, 50-plus sacks 2 years ago, leading the league this past season in 62. The Deshaun Watson is not going to last long if you just keep neglecting this position, but they did. They managed to get Max Sharping at left guard, who is seen as one of the top 5 guards coming out of the draft, so that should shore up that guard position and adds competition because they also brought in a free agent and was it I love these names, Sino Calamante, coming from the New Orleans Saints. So they added a veteran along with a draft pick. Now, may the best man win that position. So they added competition. And they also put out in the first round a guy that not a lot of people saw as being a first-round pick per se, but a guy coming from a Division II school in Titus Howard. Guy that proved to be every bit as good as any other tackle coming into this draft. Guy that performed very well in the Senior Bowl and also produced well at the Combine, amongst other private workouts that he's had. So they managed to pull off the draft pick there for the first round for Titus Howard to shore up that right tackle spot. Once again, they had the same formula for this offensive line. They drafted a tackle, and they also brought in competition there for the free agent Centrell Henderson, who came from the Buffalo Bills. So you look at this team now, and they do have Nick Martin at center, who is a solid center for them. They also brought in from the Kansas City Chiefs Zach Fulton to play right guard. So they made some changes there. Julian Davenport is healthy now and is going to play at that left tackle position. So overall, I think they might have done enough to shore this offensive line up and at least try to get that number way down from sacks allowed.
All right, now my next question for the Houston Texans now, too. With the new additions, can they improve their pass defense? They've signed to Sean Gibson, Bradley Roby, Jaleel Addae. So, I mean, is this enough here, too, to help them? Because that's where they had failed last year. They could stop the run, and they were top 5 in stopping the run, but they would give up the yardage towards the end on the pass during the aerial attack. Is it enough to stop and limit some of that? And especially in the AFC, to where they face a lot of teams like the Chiefs and the Colts and the Patriots and what they do try and attack you through the air. So did they do enough there with the secondary to try and help out?
Yeah, and I think they got to worry about
ageless Jonathan Joseph.
Yeah, they also got to worry about Jaguars now with Nick Foles at the helm. I think even though they have young corners, I think Nick Foles is going to make that team even better, and I think dramatically better. I don't think it's going to be like just a small bump. I think this offense is going to take a huge leap. So now that they have that in the ballpark there in that division, do I think they did enough in cornerback? I don't think so. I have a hard time seeing Jonathan Joseph back yet again. He's still a decent cornerback, but by no means is he as good as he was in his prime. And he's getting older, obviously, every season. They brought in a free agent from the New England Patriots in Johnson Badamasi, a fantastic name, but I don't know how well he's going to be in this defensive scheme or if he's going to make even a dramatic impact. And then you look on the opposite side, they got Aaron Colvin, who's penciled in as the starter, opposite Jonathan Joseph. And Aaron Colvin, he was hurt last year, so we still don't know. We can't really make a judgment call on Aaron Colvin yet, a very tall type of corner, big body guy and a physical corner. Don't know how well he's going to play in this defensive scheme, what have you. But the real interesting thing is the Texans didn't really, they didn't concentrate hard on cornerback, which was surprising. They really concentrated on safety. They didn't miss out on Tyrann Mathieu. He moved on, went to the Chiefs. And because of that, they ended up signing free agents to Sean Gibson from the Jaguars. Brian Bobby Calhoun, an underrated type of safety from the Browns. Jaleel Addae from the Chargers, another good safety there. And they already had Justin Reed, who they drafted 2 years ago, who in his rookie season was a ball hawk, was an absolute amazing safety for them. So I think they're pretty solid in the back end of that secondary, but I still think there's questions at cornerback. And this defense, for the past couple of seasons, they've always been known as a great pass rushing defense, and I think that is going to continue with the likes of Jadeveon Clowney, who's still there. And there's been a lot of rumors circling around Houston saying that Clowney could be moved before the draft. It never happened. It still could happen. I mean, if they can't get a deal decided and done and finished to keep Clowney there, I still foresee they have all the rest of the OTAs going into training camp before the season. They could still decide, like, hey, listen, we really don't think that we're going to get a deal done with Clowney. And if that's the case, we got to get some kind of compensation for the guy. So I think you may still see him being moved. If that happens, that's going to create a big gap there for that jack linebacker position that he likes to play. And J.J. Watt, he hasn't been the healthiest guy, and I wonder, is he going to be able to be healthy this year? He's had tremendous back problems and amongst other injuries, elbow injuries and what have you. So I think this team is still going to be deadly at pass rushing. I think they're going to be really good at stopping the run like usual, but I still think they're going to suffer when it comes to the pass defense. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I think they still need more work.
Now, in the tough division that they're in here, like you said, there's a lot of they're really close in comparison to each other, really fighting for a playoff spot now. Now, if the Texans fail to make the playoffs, is Bill O'Brien going to be fired now? I mean, he's held on by the skin of his teeth due to injuries, the lack of, I've had to go from Tom Savage to this guy and this and all over the place.
Yeah, right.
And he's made a lot of crazy decisions, too, on his own, too, with what to do. Stick it with a quarterback, and then that's the same week. He's like, no, I'm going to make the switch now. Boom, week one. You know what I mean? So this guy has been all over the map. And so he's been able to keep his job so long, but with the talent that he has on this, and it's almost a wasted talent in having DeAndre Hopkins for so long and not being able to do what you can with him. Finally, you've got the quarterback that you need here. And this is the time, and if they can't make the playoffs, you think he's finally on his way out here?
The thing with Bill O'Brien here is that, he really hasn't had a quarterback, a franchise quarterback, a guy that they can completely believe in early on in his coaching career.
Yeah, you could list it before.
And that's why you started to see him kind of like, okay, yeah, that happened, but we didn't have a real quarterback. Okay, this season went by and we had Tom Savage, and they just couldn't find the right guy. Now that they have the right guy, and he's been there for a couple of years, even though he was injured for most of
last year.
Yeah, last season or even the season beforehand. There's almost no more excuses now. You can't blame it on the quarterback. You can't blame it on the receiving talent. They got tremendous receiving talent. DeAndre Hopkins, Kiki QT, who they have. Will Fuller. Will Fuller is another guy who just gets bitten by the injury bug year after year. Will he be able to stay healthy? There's a lot of questions in terms of injuries on this team. And I think that now Deshaun Watson, coming into his third season, I think this has got to be the determining factor here. I think it's playoffs or bust now for his job. He was on the hot seat last year, and I think the hot seat's only going to continue for Bill O'Brien because now at this point, with that receiving core that they have, with a improved offensive line, hopefully that limits the amount of sacks that Watson takes on, and and with even like the backfield. We know Lamar Miller. He's had his ups and downs in production. And they have another running back in Deontay Foreman, who was injured last year. He's coming back healthy this year. That'll be interesting to see. So I think right now, I don't think there's any more question marks here. I think he's got to propel his team. Has to make the playoffs, whether it be wild card or a seeded or winning the division and getting in that way. Whatever have you, he's got to show results now. Otherwise, if he don't make the playoffs, I think you might say goodbye to Mr. O'Brien.
Yeah, that's right, Bill O'Brien. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see if he does keep his job. If they make the playoffs here, we'll see what happens with this division. It's going to be a great division. We just covered the biggest questions of the AFC South here. I hope you guys enjoyed our show for this evening. We covered a whole lot tonight, Joe. I mean, we did our top 10
I think we did good.
projected quarterbacks of 2019. So if you guys, in case you missed it, you check that out. That was earlier on.
Yeah, and
in
let
the
us
show.
know what you think your top 10 projected. Now, the keyword's projected.
Yeah, or we can do a different list
2019
like Mike
quarterbacks.
Tackett did. Mike Tackett did his best, top half of quarterbacks.
We've been there,
you know,
done
too.
that.
So, yeah. And we also had the fact of the day. So, we'll throw it out there. Check it out, fact of the day. And thanks for chilling with us. Follow us on Facebook.
Yep.
Join our group at Football on the No Show on Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Just hit the subscribe button if you guys are watching us on YouTube.
Football on the
And
No Show.
Twitter, too. We're also on Twitter, and we're going through Periscope tonight, too, as well. So we appreciate all you guys do for us. Become a know-it-all. And
At FB_no, mind you.
there you
on
go.
Twitter. So
on Twitter, FBI.
yeah, and also just want to encourage all our know-it-alls out there, or soon-to-be know-it-alls. Go ahead and reach out to a friend, family member that loves talking football, that loves this, loves shows like this or anything, and have them become a know-it-all. Have them become a member, whether you're on YouTube, Twitter, anything.
Definitely, we have a lot of fun. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we will see you guys next week.
Join us next week from 8 till 10 Wednesday night for more Football on the No with Jim and Joe.